never fade. Crank it louder, feel the heat. Barbecue anthem, start the game. Let's go.
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
And welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things that are important to the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evenings, a live fire fun and frivolity show. If you would like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you would like to follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at BBQCentralShow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening this evening. Coming up in about 12 minutes from now, the first quarterly visit from the Barbecue Central Show's official cigar expert, Mr. J from the Cigar Authority, will join us. Also, you can purchase cigars at the numeral 2guyscigars.com, and I can say that, although they can't on their show for some reason, but I've long since hated YouTube, perhaps more than most folks. So I don't really give a fuck if they ban me or don't ban me, because I make $0 and 0 cents from them after tax. And again, if you're a fan of the show, you know the long, sordid hatred that I have for YouTube. Thusly, YouTube has for me. Nevertheless, if you want to buy some premium cigars, the elite retailer in the country, and dare I say the world, Two Guys Cigars, or you can just subscribe to the podcast that they do every week, or live show, just like this show. It's live, but it's also a podcast called The Cigar Authority. So Mr. J coming up here shortly. And then after Mr. J, we will go to our barbecue expert and an author and a monthly guest here on this show. It is Robert Moss, Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. So we have a number of topics to chat about as Robert joins us, not the least of which is the spelling of the word barbecue. I have thoughts on that. He does too. We will be talking about if beef prices will be finding any kind of lowering in the near future, and I think the news is bad on that. We will also talk about something that he's done a few times in the past that I found incredibly interesting, called the Hamburger Index, and some other things as well. So that'll bring a close to the first hour. Then we move to the second hour, and it's been about 4 years since the last time he was on, but through a lot of ghost communication, and by ghost I mean none at all. But here he is anyway. Mark Anderson from the Grill Dads is joining us in the second hour. And while we had some really great communication up front 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you know I am all about the rib roast method that him and Faye decided to unveil to the social medias. I fell deeply, madly, and quickly in love with it. asking everybody about it and their thoughts on it. And why not actually talk to 50% of the genius that decided to bring this method to our attention. And congratulations to them for doing it. And then I'm to find out that they're in the midst of doing something brand new, and that's why he kind of fell off communication over this past weekend. Not until today. I sent him an email earlier this morning. He said, Mark, haven't heard from you since Friday when I reached out. No sound checks. If I don't hear from you by X time, I'm moving on. In fact, I'm planning on you just not showing up. I have some things I need to talk about, so I'm not even planning on you. But if I don't hear back from you by X time, I'm definitely not planning on you. Then he reached out. I said, maybe we should just reschedule. No, I have gear. I have the testicular fortitude to want to still do the segment. So, okay, we did a quick sound check. Of course, he is a professional and everything sounded great. That means nothing. Everything could sound like crap here in an hour and change. But we gave it our best college try, and we'll see what's happening here. And plenty to talk about when it comes to Mark Anderson. Again, off 5 years. Last time Mark was on, believe it or not, we were unveiling their brand new Grill Dads podcast. How did that work out? Not very well. Like most podcasts. I know, 2 weeks in a row where I'm going to summarily shit on everybody that's ever had a podcast. But look, in this my space, the live fire industry, I mean, no one's even coming close to me, and it's not even, second isn't even close. I think I'm second, too, with the best moments of the Barbecue Central show. Now getting ready to jump to 420 episodes all by itself, let alone the near 2,000 episodes I have of this show. And by the way, if I might, February 7th, 2008, the Barbecue Central show went live for the very first time. That means we celebrated an anniversary on Saturday, I think was the 7th. I believe I'm right. Whatever 3 days less than today was. We celebrate 18 years of doing it live. A feat unto itself. I don't know how many live shows on the internet and or otherwise that are still out there, but still also doing it in podcast form. But remember, folks, even 2 years before 2008, so quickly do the math, 2006, the original, what was then called the Barbecue for You show, before I was threatened with a lawsuit to change that name because somebody else had it. BBQ, the number 4, the letter U, and they were suing people over that. I mean, can you believe it? Nevertheless, originally a podcast called Barbecue for You that eventually got named a podcast called Barbecue Central that eventually in 2008 hit the live airwaves courtesy of a partnership with LA Talk Radio, or a now LA Talk Radio, a then BBS Talk Radio. And how do you find anybody back then? Craigslist. Guy was looking for talent to take up some space, and in exchange for content, he was giving free air shifts. And I said, hey, man, I would love to be a part of this. I have good news and bad news. What's the good news? Well, it's kind of a tested platform, my show. I've been doing the podcast for 2 years. The bad news is I'm in Cleveland. I'm not in L.A. A lot of bad things there. But because we were at the bleeding edge of technology, we figured out a way for me to get an audio stream out into the internet. And then I shared that to him, and then he took that audio stream and then repurposed it on his audio servers and pumped it out through a then BBS Talk Radio, a now LA Talk Radio. And that's where the show lived for many, many years, 55 minutes in length. Eventually, BBS or LA Talk Radio and I say part ways, but I just grew to the point where I needed 2 hours. He did not have the reciprocating second hour following my first hour. That was with completely different show that was doing very well at the time. And I said, hey, you're welcome to continue to syndicate the first hour, but I'm going to open up my own. Streaming became much more popular by then. And I said, I'm just going to do it on my own. But if you want to syndicate that first hour through LA Talk Radio, fine, go ahead, have at it. So I would say as of February 7th, 2007, and I don't recall the exact date of when we put out that first horrible podcast, but let's say I'm 20 years in the biz, Polly. 20 years in the biz. So few podcasts have ever made it as long as mine, regardless of content coverage. Few do it as routinely as I do. And to answer Diane Me, is LA Talk Radio around? Yes, latalkradio.com can also be listened to on an app in your app store, LA Talk Radio. And Jason Pettis, 4691, asking, does the forum still exist? Jason, just when I thought you were a super fan, I sold it years ago. I made a lot of money on that back in the day. $75,000. Yeah, baby. Retired for about a week and then got right back on the horse because I live expensively. I saw, the future wasn't message forums. The future was podcasting, and really just starting to gain momentum is this podcast. Mr. J is in the green room smoking some kind of a delicious cigar that we'll learn all about here in just a moment. Before we learn about that, we'll talk to you about Primo Grills, because what do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they're fuel efficient. We love that you can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meats. We love that you can get rip-roaring hot for high-temperature grilling of steak and other thin cuts. But what's missing in the everyday lineup of ceramic cookers? The real ability to do that true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking is very important to both professional and backyard cooks alike. It's the best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker isn't very realistic. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo Grill and the game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute that two-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. And when you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to cook on this beast, so you're only limited by your culinary imagination. Sold through dealers only. Go to primogrill.com, find the dealer near you, visit in person, touch and feel all the ovals, and then buy one. And by the way, this past weekend, we were celebrating Detective Corey's birthday, big steak cook. I say shout out to Mr. Brisket for the beef, but I had to pay for that beef. All right, I'll pay. What did I come to find out quickly? I should have used the Primo, because the gas grill was not very keen on firing up. It was cold. And all I really needed to do was drop some lit charcoal over some unlit charcoal, let it come to temperature, let the ceramic get warm. Oh, it had a much better grilling experience, and shame on me. Lesson learned. Don't fall victim the same way I did. Primogrill.com, follow them on Facebook and Instagram. We're back with Mr. J right after this. Stick around, we'll be right back.
You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Broadcasting live from the BBQ Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by Fireboard. Makers of Fireboard 2, Fireboard Pro, Fireboard Spark, Fireboard Beacon, and the wireless Fireboard Pulse. When you use the Fireboard app, you have total access to all devices anywhere in the world. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. Jason Pettis, 4691, weighing in. I knew you sold it, just didn't know if it still existed. Good question, Jason. I would search on the internet www.bbq-the numeral 4- the letter U.com, and then see what comes up. Report back, please, because I know you'll do it post-haste. Hey, my first guest tonight, a well-known figure in the cigar community, one of the co-hosts of the very popular Cigar Authority podcast, and making his first quarterly appearance of 2026 to talk about the latest news and trends in the cigar industry, the Barbecue Central's very own cigar expert, Mr. Jonathan. There he is, Mr. J. We appreciate you coming in here for yet another year, getting ready to launch 2026 in the most epic fashions ever. But before we do that, we have a Would You Rather YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody. Would you rather get a foot massage or would you rather get a shoulder massage?
I think I'd go foot.
Foot. All right. 18% of the YouTube voting public is opting for foot massage. I think foot massage shows y'all might be a little bit of a freak if you're asking me, but I think what we've come to know and love about a Mr. J on the Cigar Authorities podcast is y'all might be kind of a little bit of a freak.
Nothing little about it.
That's right.
All freak.
Let that freak
Hey,
flag.
congratulations on 20 years, by the way.
That's
That was
pretty
quite
impressive,
the little
right?
soliloquy you had going on there.
Right off the top of my head. My professionalism knows no bounds. All right, Mr. J, what is smoking well in the Two Guys Smoke Shop these days?
Right now, I am smoking almost every day the HVC edition Especial 2015. Garofalo Maduro, which I know I talk about that one all the time. It's made by Perdomo. I love it. Gold Star, I added to my rotation this week, and I'm glad I did. And we had a new cigar. The guy that created the blends for Media Tierra for the gentleman Nick out in Pennsylvania, he has a brand. It's brand new called Didier. Expensive. They're $25 to $30. Man, are they good, though.
Wow.
Very good. And I know you're going to ask me about it. I got to say it. Perdomo Legacy. Not only is it killing it sales-wise, but damn it, they're great.
So that's a great dovetail into the next question or next topic, which is Perdomo Legacy winning the 2025 Cigar Authorities podcast Cigar of the Year. Cigar of the Year, not yeared, but Cigar of the Year. I don't know if I can properly bring across what this award actually means. So, for instance, if my show was seen as the Cigar Authority is seen within the industry, then if I had, I don't know, barbecue sauce of the year or new barbecue rub of the year, and we had the whole setup like you guys do with the cigars, and then we crowned, Blues Hog was barbecue sauce of the year this year, maybe that would almost bring in at least a monicum of idea of how the Cigar Authority Cigar of the Year is actually viewed in the industry. But as somebody who's in the industry, if you're making cigars, you want to be the winner of this, no doubt.
For sure. It all boils down to sales. The reason we came out with Cigar of the Year in 92, which predates me at the company, is to generate interest in the new cigar brand. So they have to come out after October 1st of the year prior. And then you look at the first month, say, of sales. And in the case of the Perdomo Legacy, it boiled down to the biggest single launch in company history on the heels of the other biggest launch in company history, which was the Perdomo 30th. So sales-wise, nothing came close as far as that launch was concerned. If you look back at the Perdomo history, their first year in business, they did 10,000 cigars, which is about 500 boxes, 20-count boxes. And we did that in a weekend with the launch as a company. It was just massive. So you boil down also votes where nothing came in close. If someone bought a contenders pack, they got a chance to vote with a special email address in the back. And the votes came in overwhelmingly for Perdomo. And staff picks, the only thing that came even on the radar was that HVC I mentioned earlier. It came closer, but overall, it was a slam dunk in favor of Perdomo Legacy, Gran Bellicoso, shade grown.
Do you think that when Perdomo is putting this together, they're thinking we want to release this so it can be at least in play in the Cigar of the Year contendership? And if so, are they also making sure? So there's a lot of metrics. Maybe if you want to just break it down very quickly, the metrics of what it takes to be Cigar of the Year, or what you have to hit in order to be considered a contender.
To be a contender, you have to be readily available. You have to be having launched in that calendar year. And we say the calendar year is from October all the way until the end of September. That's our calendar year, so that we have time to sell it and see what that first month will do. After you equate all the sales, all of our staff gets a vote. The panel on Cigar Authority gets a vote, and no, I don't get to vote twice. My one vote counts. And we also poll the audience of the people that bought I think it was 700 contenders packs this year.
Wow.
So 700 people voted in addition to that after smoking all the cigars in the pack. Do I think that Perdomo was thinking about that when they launched it? No, I think that as a company, they're super authentic to their brand. And this was a passion project for Nick Trey, third generation, fourth in the cigar industry, but the third of the Nick Perdomos. And he wanted to make this cigar using a special tobacco that his dad had formulated 12 or 13 years ago, this Nicaraguan shade grown. They tried to grow shade tobacco under cheesecloth in Esteli, Nicaragua. And even with reducing the power of the sun by 40%, growing it under cheesecloth, the soil is so nutrient dense and the sun is so powerful there that when they fermented it, it fermented like a sun-grown tobacco. And Nick, not senior, Nick the second, we call him Nick Perdomo, didn't know what to do with it. So he put it on ice in bales, and Nicholas has reign over all the tobacco. His dad's the owner of the company, and he's a higher up himself. And so he starts working on this blend secretly and taps in Arthur Kemper, the president of the company. And one thing leads to another. They come up with the artwork. They come up with the whole concept, and they presented it to him at a trade show and said, this is what we want to do. And of course it gets Nick's blessing, and it launches, and it's absolutely huge. It's a monster.
Biggest launch ever for them?
Biggest launch ever for them, but more importantly, because I work for Two Guys Smoke Shop, it's the biggest launch for us, and honored that they gave us a 3-week head start over the rest of the world. We sold a metric shit ton of Perdomo Legacy.
Do you expect something big from them this year?
There is something in the pipeline that's top secret. There'll be episodes on that coming out in the not too distant future, but I think they're going to take a year off from releasing anything too massive, and I expect to see something in 2027 from them, which will be pretty breathtaking.
Shockingly, the New England Cigar Expo is happening again in 2026. I was a bit shocked, but Dave seems like maybe a bit of a closet sadist. When is it, and where can I get tickets?
The New England Cigar Expo is September 25th and 26th of this year. And the tickets go on sale the first Saturday in May, which is May 2nd. And honestly, I knew during the Cigar Expo last year, even though Dave was saying it was his last, I saw him get this idea for this booth set up because we ran out of seats. Somebody invited someone, it might have been Christian Aroa. I think he brought his wife in. Someone else surprised him. Nelson Alfonso wasn't supposed to be at the event. He showed up with his 2 sons. So we're out 4 seats, and it's sold out. So he moved his mother, his wife, and his daughter into this side booth, and they were raving about the seats that they had. And they said that this is where they want to sit every time. And I saw that little acorn start to grow into an oak tree. And now this year we're launching this 4-seat VIP section where 4 people or 1 person could buy it for the $2,500, but you get VIP access and you get your own little booth for the show on night 1.
Worth the money?
Oh, it's going to sell out in hours, not days.
Yeah.
And I had to field an email this week, and the guy was bitching and moaning about the VIPs not worth it. You get the same number of cigars and all this. If it isn't worth it, why do I see the same names on the VIP list every year? And each year we've increased the VIP list by a little bit because we had to. And each year it sells out the fastest. The people that are buying those tickets, they see the value, and forget about I'm a huge Perdomo fan. So if I were a consumer, I would buy the VIP ticket so I could sit at Perdomo's table. That to me is worth it because you can choose your seat with VIP access. That's worth it.
This is going to sell out. So if you're interested, September 25th, September 26th are the dates it is actually happening, but tickets go on sale. You said that first weekend in May, which is May 2nd?
May 2nd, yep.
All right. So if you're interested, keep an eye out and get your tickets early and often. I wanted to, if you're open to this, maybe start going through some of the more well-known brands, and then as time wears on this year, start bringing up some of the mid-range, some of the new entries, or I don't want to say lower level because that sounds like we're talking about quality, but smaller, I guess we should say, cigar brands, companies. And I know brands and company or brands and manufacturer aren't necessarily the same thing, although some are vertically integrated. I wanted to start with the brand that we've been talking a little bit about here this evening, which is Perdomo. So if you don't mind taking us to brand or company school here, what can you tell us about Perdomo for the folks that don't know?
So Perdomo traces its history back to Cuba, where Silvio Perdomo was raised near Havana. He entered the cigar industry as a young man in the early 30s. He apprenticed at some of the more prestigious factories. It later ends up working at H. Upmann before becoming a manager at Partagas until about 1959. His son, Nicholas Perdomo Sr., not Nick Perdomo that we know now, this is Sr., followed suit and started his apprenticeship in 1948. And he eventually started rising into sort of more executive roles at some of the major Cuban facilities like H. Upmann. And the Cuban Revolution kind of threw a monkey wrench into everything, and it forced the family into exile. Nick Sr. resettles into the United States near Washington, D.C., and the next generation ends up being Nick Perdomo Jr., the man we know now as Nick Perdomo. In 1992, he leaves his career as an air traffic controller at the Miami International Airport, and he pursues his passion for cigars, starting modestly as Nick's Cigar Company in his garage in Hialeah, Florida. He begins rolling in small batches and sold about, like I said before, 10,000 cigars, about 500 boxes. To put that into perspective, my house brand Dos Hombre sells 500,000 cigars a year.
Wow.
He started off at 10,000 the first year. He hits the mid-90s with the cigar boom, and he ends up partnering with his dad and expands rapidly, moving production to Nicaragua in 1995 with a small factory in Esteli. By 99, he builds a larger factory and changes the name to Tabacalera Perdomo and grows into a vertically integrated powerhouse, which all happened out of necessity. If you ever hear Nick talk about his history, he would look to the box factory and say, hey, that this is the holdup. And when they're just give him the runaround, he starts his own box factory. And when there was a problem with how the paint was sticking to the boxes, he creates a nozzle that Husky ended up buying the rights from him. They bought it. They gave him 3 nozzles, and this allows him to save paint as he's spraying the boxes and stain. Cellophane. He makes his own cellophane. The only thing he doesn't do is print his own bands. He has 2 safes in his facility. One safe holds his paper products, and the other safe holds his proprietary seeds. When I tell you he's vertically integrated, he stamps his own hinges for the box. Every single thing that you can imagine that could be done, except printing the bands, he does it. So that's why he's the animal that he is today. That's why you look at a Perdomo cigar and it smokes. The Legacy smokes like a $30 cigar. It's $15. It's an unbelievable value across his entire portfolio.
I appreciate the look into Perdomo. We're running a little short of time here, and of course, the show is about me, and I got to ask my question. So we'll get to Padron next quarter and perhaps another company or two. So I have a humidor sitting just to the left of me. It's supposed to keep temperature. It appears that the heater portion of the thing that's supposed to keep temperature is no longer working. So I've unplugged the unit completely. I have bought a supplemental cigar oasis in order to keep humidity into it, because the thing did also have its own humidifying drawer, but without any power, it's not doing anything, and it only seems like the heater will run for 20 seconds, and then the air conditioning portion kicks on, and it was a losing battle all the way around. So unplugged it, got Cigar Oasis, and so it's the ambient temperature of the humidor right now where I'm sitting at in Cleveland, Ohio, 61 degrees here in the basement. Humidity, 65%, thanks to the aforementioned Cigar Oasis. So I'm not overly concerned with the humidity, but do I need to be, or perhaps when do I need to be concerned with the temperature, if at all?
If you're in the basement, most likely your temperature is not going to fluctuate all that much. In the heat of the summer, maybe you hit 70 down there. If you're comfortable, the cigars are comfortable. So if you walk in that basement and it feels cooler than the rest of the world, you're okay. So really you want to think in terms of how comfortable are you temperature-wise, and if you're comfortable in a t-shirt, shorts, cigars are comfortable. A little cool is not a problem. You just want to keep in mind that temperature and humidity are relative to each other. So as temperature goes down, humidity goes up. So I would take that Cigar Oasis and drop it down 5 ticks down to 60. So what that's going to do is in the spring and the fall, as we're resistant to put on the heat in the fall and the temperature drops a little bit, the humidity is going to climb. So you want that headroom from 60 to 65. And then the inverse is going to happen in the springtime when you're resistant to putting on the AC and the temperature climbs a bit, the humidity is going to fall, and you still have another 5 points. So anywhere between 55 and 65 is the sweet spot for humidity, keeping in mind that temperature is going to be what really dictates the ultimate reading. So again, be comfortable. Your cigars are comfortable. And then the rest of it, I know what you smoke. Your stuff is going to smoke better on the drier side.
Is this pretty standard operation for a lot of these? I don't know. I mean, if let's say it was a $600 or $700 retail, holds 400 to 500 cigars. It does heat. It does air conditioning. It's got the humidity drawer. I mean, do they crap out after a couple of years? Is this kind of run of the mill?
It's not that it's run of the mill. It really depends on the climate and how often it has to cycle back and forth. And most of those parts you can source on eBay or Amazon, and they are fairly plug and play, where it's a 2-prong wire clip or a couple of screws. If it's more than that, you just have to know how to tin a soldering iron and you're all set.
Yes. Well, guess what? I certainly have no idea how to do that. So leaving it unplugged is the easiest thing for me to do, and I can probably figure out how to lessen the humidity on my Cigar Oasis. And
Cigar Oasis they're top notch. That's what I use in my singles humidor. I have a slightly bigger unit for my stand-up case, but I've used Cigar Oasis for years, and the original one that I bought over 12 years ago is still functioning in my brother's humidor at his house.
All right. Well, if you are interested in more cigar content, of course, listen here every quarter where you can hear Mr. Jonathan. But in the meantime, you can catch him every week over on the cigarauthority.com. You can subscribe to the podcast. And if you are into buying cigars, which I certainly am, they are my vendor of choice. So the number 2 guys, cigars. BBQWorldCup.com is the place to go. Mr. J, always appreciate the time, and we'll see you in 3 months.
All right. Thank you.
You got it. A pro's pro and an expert when it comes to the cigar talk, and that's why we have him on. And like, here's how I know I am no man. At the end, I don't know if you caught it, he said, if you know how to tin a soldering iron. I didn't even know that was a thing to say. Tin a soldering iron. Yeah, look, I'm no man. My handyman skills, we pay people for that. That's what I say. Right, Mr. Robert Moss is in the green room, and before we get to him, we will talk to you about Big Papa Smokers. Competition season's heating up, gang, and now's the time to stock up with Big Papa Smokers, your source for championship barbecue flavor. Load up on the award-winning Sweet Money, the proven competition brisket and steak rub. Do all of this before the pits fire up and the smoke rolls in. Whether you're chasing trophies or perfecting your backyard game, Big Papa's got the flavor that wins. Shop now at BigPapaSmokers.com. That's BigPapaSmokers.com. And use code REMPE26, all one word together, REMPE, and the numerals 26 at checkout for free shipping. Exclusions apply. Big Papa Smokers, real barbecue, real results. And we'll be back with Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer Robert Moss right after this. Stick around.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we thank Mr. Jonathan for joining us last segment. This portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet, available in 3 sizes, many accessories. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a professional, it's a cooker you want to add to the arsenal. Visit pitbarrelcooker.com and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. Jason Pettis on fire writing in, you should look up what became of Daryl Mast, who had the Barbecue Superstars podcast back in the day. Crazy story. Please share. I remember Daryl. I remember Daryl as being, I don't remember him necessarily having a podcast per se, although I do believe he had one. But I remember Daryl as being more of a guy who was really on that bleeding edge of streaming live video at events he was going to. And he was traversing the country, going to all kinds of different competitions and cooking schools and interviewing people. That part, very impressive. See, the problem with doing all of that stuff back in the day was the lack of a solidified and, dare I say, quality Wi-Fi internet connection, which was nothing, which is why I never wanted to go anywhere. Inevitably, it was going to be me at crunch time, getting ready to announce a winner somewhere, and we're live, and then the Wi-Fi signal dumps, and I look like a fool, and all anybody's going to remember isn't the 15 hours of great live broadcasting that happened. It's the last 48 seconds of when the Wi-Fi dumped and nobody found out who the winner of that competition was. But nevertheless, my next guest is the contributing barbecue editor for Southern Living Magazine, a 2023 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer, and all of our pals, Robert Moss. All right, Robert, we have a YouTube poll question of the week, a would you rather, by the way. Would you rather get a foot massage or a shoulder massage?
Shoulder massage, 100%.
Shoulder massage, right.
Yeah. My feet are very ticklish, so that never.
7% of the YouTube voting public is also saying that they would care for the foot massage. For the shoulder massage over the foot massage, and I certainly agree with that as well. All right, so we have a couple different topics here, and look at here. I don't want to.
A Barbecue Central Show exclusive news update.
Greg Rempe reporting from the Breakings News Desk here in Cleveland, Ohio, the city that breaks the most live-fire breaking news across the country. Nay, the globe. And reporting direct from his office in South Carolina is Robert Moss. Robert?
Yeah, so I think we had talked about we were going to talk if we had time about the BBQ World Cup, which I wrote about in the my newsletter yesterday, actually, the one that just came out. But I had some breaking news on that front and wanted to update it because I have more information than I had in the newsletter, where I had sort of laid out a lot of the unanswered questions. Still a lot of unanswered questions, but there's a lot more to it. So it's just like an hour ago or so. I won't say who it is because they didn't say I could say his name, but somebody who's had read the cue sheet and is in the competition world, well known, sent me a link to a podcast, which is Luke Darnell's podcast, Old Virginia Smoke. I think it's called Pitmaster with Old Virginia Smoke. So he's one of the, he's a competition guy, well known. Competition champion, and he's one of the 13, I think, pitmaster on the pitmaster committee. Yep. So he had Scott Erdman and Shannon Pruitt from BBQ World Cup on his podcast, which just dropped today. And so I hadn't heard it until like an hour ago. So I raced through it and listened to it right before the show. You heard a lot of stuff I already knew. You got a lot of their background and things like that, which I'd written about. But I do have a few pieces of news, which they've talked about a little bit about the money, which is, I think, the thing that everybody is. Of course. Is interested in. What I thought was curious is they're building this community, the BBQ World Cup community, and it's apparently a membership community. You can go sign up for it, give me an email today, but there's no way to pay online or anything. But apparently that's what costs $50 to join the membership community, which will get you access to all kinds of discounts and online stuff and things like that. But to actually participate, if you I think they've named 23 regional competitions now that are the feeder or the qualifying competitions through the big BBQ World Cup event in Las Vegas. They did say that it's going to be spring of 2027. So we started to zero in on a date, either the beginning of April, first or second week of April. They're still working on locking in where it's going to be. So that isn't the actual property, but they're shooting for April 2027, which is I hadn't seen a date announced other than 2027, so that's new. And if you are a member of this World Cup community and you qualify, the entry fee is $500 for your team.
Wow.
If you're not a member of that community and you qualify, it's $1,250 or $1,250 to enter. Wow. So there are some entry fees. So we've gotten that. Apparently the question they're getting from everybody is, where does the money come from? And they did say on the podcast simply that they have investors, or so not revealing where it's coming from, or et cetera. So that's a little more clarity that I got just a little while ago on the details. But we can talk more about other things they said. It was almost an hour-long podcast. But I got a lot of insight I did not have yesterday when I was publishing the cue sheet.
Time zones aside, I may or may not have a interview set up with at least Scott and potentially a Shannon Pruitt, Scott Erdman, the last Tuesday of this month in the first hour. So it'll be first hour BBQ World Cup potentially, and then second hour the embedded correspondence segment, which would be great to talk about that, and then go right into the brain trust of the embedded correspondents to get their take on everything. From an investor's standpoint, my first question is, if you're going to be ponying up this kind of money, what kind of return do you need to see to have there be a BBQ World Cup second edition?
Yeah, and I have no idea. And I think one thing that came through in the interview I heard was that the founders are new to this, and they will admit that they really don't know much about barbecue competitions. I think you'll probably get more from Scott when he's on the show. I think he was somehow involved at an event at AT&T Stadium, I think, which I would assume is the Lone Star Smokeout, which the Windy City Smokeout folks put on. I think last year was the first year. I think he was involved in that, and that was sort of his first introduction to it. I think Shannon Pruitt admits she does, until just this year didn't really know much about barbecue. So they're sort of coming to it from the sports world, and they're new to it and are learning on it. I don't know that they have a business model fully baked out, or really. It sounds like they're still learning and figuring out a lot of things out. Is the biggest thing that came through to me in the interview.
Did they mention how many total qualifiers they might have before the main event happens in 27?
They did not say how many. I think there's 23 that have been announced so far. I didn't hear a total number. I did see somewhere on the site, because for the cue sheet I was, I think something along the lines of 100 comes to mind.
Wow.
But I got the sense that they have been focused first and foremost on getting all these qualifier competitions signed up, which is really just getting, that they aren't running those competitions. They're just getting them signed up to sort of, be part of the network or whatever. And are literally figuring out as it goes. Now, I would agree with the comment you just flashed across there. It does sound like they are building that plane as they are flying it. And I'm not even sure they know where they're flying it to exactly right now.
The only question that I have, and maybe they didn't cover it, is it a $1 million prize purse, which means cash and prizes totaling $1 million, and then is the winner also getting an additional $1 million? Because I've heard it a couple different ways. I've heard it there's a $1 million prize purse, but I've also heard that the winner is also getting a separate large amount of cash prizes or cash.
Yeah, and that's one thing that did not come out on the podcast. It's something I raised in my Q sheet articles, because I've seen both things stated. I've seen it literally stated on their Instagram feed, a winner take all for $1 million. And then also on the website, it says a $1 million purse. I guess it could be a purse that only gets taken one way, but usually when you say a $1 million pool or $1 million purse, it implies it's going to get split up. I think that piece is still TBD. We just know it's the $1 million.
All right, so that's the latest in the BBQ World Cup saga, and as I said, give it a couple weeks here, and we may just land a Scott Erdman and or a Shannon Pruitt here on the show, and I'm going to be asking all the right questions. If there's only one true way to spell barbecue, how come there are so many other ways? And by the way, I would just like to point out, as a surprise to no one, I'm your biggest offender / hypocrite, because I truly believe, as you do, barbecue, or as you have researched, barbecue should be spelled BARBECUE. But my show, of course, is called the BBQ Central Show. So I believe the correct. However, I exhibit the complete opposite. This is why I'm a terrible parent.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that barbecue, fully spelled out with a C, BARBECUE, is the only right way to spell it. Because, even the dictionaries will accept some alternate spellings. It is what I would say my preferred spelling. Is how I like to do it. I've had a whole Q sheet article about it. I think 2 newsletters ago, where I sort of delved into the history of the abbreviation BBQ and BBQ and how that all came around. But no, I do think that I prefer to spell it all out, spell barbecue. I tend to do that. That's sort of like a house style thing for when I'm doing my own writing. What's funny is that there is no consistency and agreement, especially the further back you go in history. And having done a lot of history research of barbecue, you learn pretty quickly you've got to be searching for every single spelling under the sun, not just BARBEQUE, but like barbecue with an I, and there's all these just bizarre spellings that you get back especially in the 18th century. But back in the 18th century, spelling hadn't normalized for any word, so people just sort of spelled it however they wanted to. It wasn't until dictionaries really came along and you started standardizing that. But no, I definitely prefer barbecue with a C. Others are adamant in their methods. I did do a poll, and I think the vast majority of my readers, probably 60+% of the readers, said that they prefer it the way I do, which is the full spelled out barbecue. I do always laugh. I found like Fresh Air Barbecue down in Jackson, Georgia. You can find, like, just with a single picture of their building, 4 different spellings of barbecue on their signs anywhere else. So even single restaurants aren't consistent on how they spell it. And I think part of it may have to do with how much space they have on the sign.
If you see the words BBQ in your head, do you say the words BBQ, or in your head do you say barbecue?
Probably depends on the context, but I think I say barbecue. I look at it as just sort of shorthand for barbecue. I don't think the BBQ Central show when I see your logo twirling around up in the corner there. I think the Barbecue Central show.
Interesting, because you were on the Baseball and Barbecue podcast, and I believe the two hosts, well, I mean, it's technically Doug Scheiding's show, and he allows Len and Jeff to host the show in his absence. But even Len and Jeff seem to have differing ways of saying their own show. I believe Jeff does go to the Baseball and BBQ podcast.
You're right, he does. I don't think I really noticed that when I was on, but you're right.
And when he references barbecue, he says BBQ. Do you BBQ this way? Do you BBQ that way? Where Leonard is, I guess, more formal or more of our way of thinking, where at least he's enunciating barbecue and not BBQ. So when I'm talking to them, I'm always saying, hey, you listen to the Baseball and BBQ or barbecue podcast, depending on, whatever, it's a little fun game that we play. But I'm just wondering, and asking you to speak for all of the people, if you see letters that say BBQ, like, how are you reading that? I'm glad to see that you're at least not associating that with my show.
And now that you call it out, it is unusual, I think, for people to say BBQ frequently. Like if they're just like, let's come BBQ something in the backyard. I don't hear that very much at all.
Interestingly enough, do you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is?
I do.
Heard that name? Yeah.
Gary V.
100 years ago, before Gary V blew up into the sensation that he is now, he was doing wine library television on YouTube. And I was really into wine at the time, and I had somehow gotten a relationship with his cameraman. And Gary has been on the show 2 or 3 different times before he really got big. And he cut an intro for me. And I wrote what I wanted him to say, and I wrote BBQ Central Show, and he said BBQ Central, just like it was written. So the only regret I have is I didn't write out BARBECUE, because I would have rather had him say Barbecue Central, but he said BBQ Central, and I took it, and I was gracious that he even took 30 seconds to do it. But just goes to show people are seeing it and reading it in completely different ways.
Yeah, for sure.
The burger index is something that I found incredibly fascinating. I didn't even know you had done it before, so shame on me. But luckily, you went and revisited it and found terrible findings.
Well, I'm not sure if it's really terrible. I think it's probably good if you like burgers.
Well, sounds like it's fucking expensive.
Well, yeah, but the recent news is good. The trend, the long-term trends are bad. Yeah, so you probably didn't see it because I think I did it all basically for some Charleston publications over the years.
Yeah,
and I think the first time I did it was probably 2021. And what I did was I went and compiled what I call the burger index, sort of basing it sort of the way they do the consumer price index. I went out and I found like 10 burgers in Charleston. And I tried to do a little high end, low end, no fast food burgers, but all independent restaurants, but like, burger joints, and then some places that are steakhouses and stuff like that. And initially put it together, I think I went back to 2015, so I could track how the price of a burger and fries had increased over time. And so what I did was try to take a standard burger at each of these restaurants, like your basic burger with cheese. So a cheeseburger. And then because so many of them would come automatically with fries, I'd say a cheeseburger and fries. And then if the restaurant made you buy fries on the side, I'd add in the cost of that. So I could get the amount. Tracked it year over year. And then sort of looked at the trends back in 2021. And I've been tracking it every year since then. Usually I do it in October. I capture the price in October for these 10 restaurants for the same burger and see how it's trended over time to see the way it's gone up. And you're right, over time, that's why I sort of have this longitudinal study now of burger prices in Charleston. And what I do is take the actual raw dollar price that's on the menu and track how that's gone up. And of course, it goes up every year, and the average does at least. Some places will keep the burger at the same price for a year or two. But most places it goes up at least a little bit. So the average always goes up in raw dollar terms. But what's interesting is we used to compare it against like real dollars. So you adjust it for inflation and see how it goes up. And really I've got to look, I have my little spreadsheet over here for the first, I think all the way up till 2020, 2022, maybe 2021, the price of burger and fries was increasing at a higher rate than inflation, like twice the rate of inflation. So yeah, it's going to go up, but it's going up a lot faster than inflation. And then you get some weirdness right after COVID, where prices go sort of screwy. But what's happened in the last couple of years, and this is where the good news I think is that in raw terms the burger prices have inched up, but inflation after COVID went up. And it's actually now rising lower than inflation. In fact, the last 2 years, according to my stats, the real dollar price of a burger and fries has actually gone down in Charleston, at least, down a little bit. So I think my average price across all these restaurants, and some of these are fancy steakhouses, some are barbecue joint. And I think right now it's sitting at $17.46 is the price. When I was writing about this back in 2021, I sort of extrapolated. I said by 2025, we're going to have the average price be above $20, which I sort of speculated was a mental barrier. Sort of like when a Coca-Cola would go above 50 cents, then we'd go above $1. It'd hold there for a while. But no, it hasn't actually done that. In fact, if you adjust it for inflation, the price has actually ticked down just a little bit. I think the $17.46 in 2020 $3, I think would be $16.08, whereas the average in 2023 was $16.64. So you're actually in real dollar terms paying a little bit less. Now the bad news there could be because everything else around it is going up a lot more. So inflation is rising. So once you adjust it, and hopefully your salary is going up more. But yeah, the burgers are hanging below $20 for a burger and fries right now, at least for a while. And hopefully the good news is it looks like it's going to stay under that barrier, at least for. Even if it rises a lot in the next couple of years, we have some headroom before.
I feel like burgers shouldn't be more. Burger and fries shouldn't be more than $12.
Yeah,
like $20. We're getting on $20. Yeah, I understand where that hurdle is, but I think we've far gone past the hurdle, and people are people want the burger and they're disgruntled past $12.
Yeah. Well, people are disgruntled about most things. When I first wrote about this in 2022, I actually interviewed Brooks Wrights, who is the owner of Little Jack's Tavern, which is one of the burgers on my index. I have a great burger there. It's an expensive burger. What is it right now? Little Jack's is $17 for a burger and fries at the Little Jack's Tavern. But it's a really, really good burger. But he talked a little bit about the economics, and he talked a little bit about, they do price food. If you're doing your restaurant metric, you take your food cost and you put a multiple on top of it, like 300%. And that's sort of your standard metric. But if you are running a restaurant where you've got steaks and then you got high ticket items, lobster and stuff like that, but then people start ordering more and more burgers, well, your rent doesn't change, the gas doesn't change, your labor doesn't change. So if people are going toward the lower price thing, you actually got to bring it up a little bit. So I sort of speculated at some point, one of the reasons why burgers were rising faster than inflation was we had that period from 2015 to 2020 where burgers were booming. It's like everybody was just going burger crazy and get burger. And I think that was a larger and larger percentage of the ticket, the average restaurant ticket. So they had to raise the price on them just so they could pay the rent and pay the gas. And at the same time, labor was going up and all that. So all that doesn't, your food cost doesn't affect it. So yeah, we think of burgers as being like the economy food, right? Compared to the steak or the lobster. But you also have to bake into it. If you're went from selling 20% of your tickets burgers to 50%, now your total receipts are going down. That was the story. I think that may also have some factor now that I think burger mania, at least here in Charleston, has peaked a little bit. I think people are starting to switch up and do other things. So that may be why burgers aren't rocketing through the ceiling like they used to be.
Maybe we should also keep a finger on the pulse of something above the traditional fast food chain, a McDonald's, a Burger King. I mean, those have certainly gone up as well, kind of shockingly, but a Five Guys, the In-N-Out, the Whataburger. There's another one that I can't think of right off the top of my head. Those 5 or 6 brands and see where those track. Because I still feel if I'm going to Five Guys and I get like the double cheeseburger and the fries, I'm probably in plus 20 on that. And again, I don't think I feel very good about that.
No, well, I mean, yeah, but on the flip side, I don't think those guys are. The competition is fierce in the restaurant market, and they're not. Nobody would say that restaurants are a high margin business, so they are really having to balance their costs and everything. I think that is less I don't think it's Five Guys just profiteering off of the burgers so much as everything else around them is going up and up, up and up and up, and it just gets reflected ultimately in the burger price. I'm looking. I will note that the high end places, the steakhouses, really, I have 2 steakhouses on here and a couple of nice restaurants, and their burgers, they tend to have stabilized, or not gone up as much as the places like Sesame, which is a burger shop, Little Jack's I talked about. Melvin's Barbecue is on there here in Charleston, which is a barbecue joint, but they have a really great cheeseburger. Yep. Those are the ones that have gone up a lot. Those were all under, when I first started doing the index, or I started calculating for 2015, $10 was sort of that range. Like, and lots of restaurants were under $10. That's for a burger and fries. So you can walk out of that. Those are the ones now that if you look at them here in 2025, they're sitting at $15, $16, $17. So they have gone up quite a bit. Whereas the steakhouses, one of them was $22 in 2022, is actually $21 now. They reduced the size of their burger from 10 ounces to 8 ounces, and the price is now $21.
Always doing a bang-up job is our pal Robert Moss, and you can sign up to his Q sheet over at robertfmoss.com, and you can find him here once a month on the second Tuesday at 35 past the first hour. Yep. Robert, always appreciate the time, and we'll see you again in March.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Greg.
You got it. Robert Moss right there. Always a pro, which we certainly appreciate. And we're a little over, but that's all right. Plenty of time to get through that second hour update and then make time for Mark Anderson. Forgot to update that. Ooh. All right, anyway, we'll come back and wrap this first hour right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the BBQ Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Robert Moss for joining us last segment. robertfmoss.com, his website. Sign up for the Q sheet. It's coming out fast and furious. I love it. All right, let's make a abridged outro here as we close the first hour. We thank, again, Robert Moss and Mr. Jonathan for joining us. We are pointing to the second hour, so refresh your libations and come on back. You're listening and watching the BBQ Central Show right here on the BBQ Central Network. Stick around. We'll be right back.